First story. My wife of 11 years called my love and affection a nuisance after I caught her cheating with her coworker. She then moved in with him, taking our daughter after our divorce, and abandoned her at her grandparents' so she could bang her affair partner. I guess it is time to write my story. Even if it will stir up some bad feelings inside, I must do it to relinquish some of the venom I feel inside. Bear with me and the way I write, considering English is not my first language. I am almost 40, and my ex-wife is 39. She became my ex-wife exactly 6 months ago. In the middle of November last year, she sat me down and told me she fell out of love. She wants a divorce, that she still loves me, but is not in love with me. After 18 years of being together and 11 married, she was serious. Me and my wife met 18 years ago during college. We graduated together and dated for 7 years until 2012. We began our lives together, getting jobs, working, and spending time together. She even waited for me when I went for 2 years to begin police training. At graduation, I received a post somewhere in a rural area, far away from my city. That meant that I could come at the end of the week. 2 years later, I asked her to marry me. I was clumsy and emotional. I wanted to make a big and romantic gesture, but I ruined it. Still, she said yes, and she made me the happiest man. We moved together in a small flat until the wedding, with the intention of then buying an apartment. But life has this knack of kicking you when you least expect it. We lived in that small flat for more than a year, until we had to move with her parents. We stayed with my in-laws until 2015, when my daughter was born. She was a beautiful child with blue eyes and a flock of red hair, unlike me and her mother. I know in my very bones that she is my daughter, and wouldn't accept anything else. We moved to our own apartment in 2016. It was a rush job. My wife was sick and tired of living with her parents and wanted her own life. I wanted to too, but I have just been cautious. It hurt a little when she gave the down payment without consulting me about the apartment she found. But I was at my station and couldn't see it, and she paid out of fear of losing it. Either way, it didn't bother me that much. As long as she was happy and liked the apartment, I could make anything out of it into a home. Our home. But that meant money, and for the time being, we were out of financial resources. To renovate the apartment meant financial sacrifices and long hours of work. For a few years, some rooms were just closets to store things. Then slowly, things began to move. Time passed, and I got paid better. I closed some loans and renovated another room, and different improvements in the house. Working 8-hour shifts helped me be next to my family, even if I commuted 3 hours to my post every day. Sometimes we fought not big arguments, but fired up. I was always asking her to be more affectionate toward me. I wanted a sign that she loves me and appreciates me. She always replied that that's her way of being. She loves me and has feelings for me, but it is hard for her to show them. We were both introverts. In time, I became more of a people person. I came out of my shell, and I like to think that I helped her do that too. To a certain degree, she was still more of a silent type, but could very easily socialize when she felt comfortable. Sometimes, during our arguments, she would end them by asking for a divorce. I always thought that she did that to hurt me, but now I see that it was always in her heart. Now, thinking back, I don't ever remember her telling me she loves me. Like out of the blue. She always said it after I would tell it to her, but never from her own free will. Or that she appreciates what I do. In the summer of 2022, I moved posts as I passed an interview. I came home on a leading post, being paid better. Also, my shifts changed to 12/24ths, 12/48ths, which meant a lot of spare time to be with my family. I did chores in the house like any other husband would do. I took my daughter to the park, fed her, dressed her, put her to bed, and did groceries. Because my salary was way higher than hers, I took all the financial problems on myself and left the household expenditures to her. It was working. We were a team. Although sometimes, from month to month, I would struggle financially, I kept it to myself. Sometimes the dread of not being able to cover our mortgage was so overwhelming that I felt like I was breathing fire. That is why, when she found a new job with a little pay raise, we consulted and decided to go for it. Even if it was just for a year, it was good to build more diverse experience in the work field. It is a company from the US with a branch in my country and some offices in my hometown. I told her I support whatever decision she will make, and even if after that year she won't have that job anymore, we will struggle a bit, but we'll make it from my salary. Another good side was that she would work a lot from home. In the beginning, I saw her struggle. I guess there were a lot of new terms and terminology and new information she needed to absorb. So, I tried to help in the best way I could. But give her time and freedom. After a night shift of 12 hours on patrol, I would come home early in the morning, stuff myself with coffee, and take our daughter to school. I stayed awake because in a few hours I had to go to take her from school. Then bring her home, change her clothes, feed her, take her to the park, and put her to rest for a few hours. Sometimes, not all the times I prepared dinner. I washed dishes even if putting them in a washing machine doesn't qualify as a grand effort. I did laundry when she was overwhelmed. As I said, we were a team. Her during the night, me during the day. Me during the work week, and her during the weekend when I worked. When our schedules coincided, and we had a free weekend, we tried to make something nice. I would always let her pick what she would like to do, because I wanted to do something relaxing for her. But it is hard with an 8-year-old daughter who only wants to go to parks and meet with her classmates or friends. But we did things together as a family. Even when we went on vacation, I would let her pick the place, mountain or seaside. And I was always scolded for not choosing the place to go, or for not organizing things. In the middle of 2023, something shifted inside her. I don't know what. At that time, I didn't feel it. I always thought that it was stress from her new job. I was walking like an eggshell around her. And she became more distant than her usual self. Also, because my shifts sometimes start early in the morning, way early, I moved into another room and let my wife and my daughter sleep in the master bedroom. And apparently, I snore, and she has a light sleep. But I didn't mind, although my daughter always asked me to sleep next to her because she didn't mind that I snore. Our partnership became more like a roommate situation. I would work, pay bills, and give my wife free time by staying with our daughter and taking care of our home. Don't get me wrong. She did a lot of stuff around the house and cooked, as did I, maybe more than me. But she also chose to spend some time alone for herself, instead of spending it with us. I understood back then that she needed her time and her freedom, and I never banned that. She needed to go to a girls' night out. I flipped my shift and stayed at home. Company Christmas party? I had a wonderful doll party with my daughter. But I missed her. She asked me, why don't I go into town with my friends as compensation? But I did not want that. I wanted time and attention from her. She never understood that. She said I was too clingy. Sometimes when I woke up early in the morning, I would have set my alarm 10 minutes before my normal time, just to snuck in her bed next to her and our daughter and hold them. In time, all my affection signs became a nuisance to her, I guess. She never showed otherwise. I guess a lot of it is my fault. I couldn't see the forest because of the trees. It is a saying in my language. I was so caught up in building us a home and stability that I forgot to appreciate her. To bring her flowers, I forgot to make her unexpected presents, and the ones that I was making weren't the best to take her to vacations, to be unexpected. And she stopped investing in me. Fight for me. Or maybe that was long before. I didn't know anymore. I saw her drifting away from our family. Me and our daughter would go out to the park. She would choose to go out on random walks or with her bicycle. And I was okay with that. I hoped that it was what made her happy. Help her decompress after a long week of work. So, in November, she told me she wanted a divorce. We became roommates, and she has no feelings for me. She shattered my entire heart into little pieces. I know her, and I knew this time was serious, not just to hurt me. She said she felt this way for a few years, but did not know how to end things. She believed we would be happier apart than together. I would say she would spin it into a reason to break up to divorce. For a week, I did the pick-me-up dance. I tried to talk with her, to reason with her. I proposed to go to counseling with her. Nothing. She was adamant. I told her I would fight to win her heart back to be the man she fell in love with. I ignored my friends' and family's idea that it was about someone else. I could not believe it, and accept that the person I dedicated my life to, with whom I wanted to grow old, could be such a person. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, and I cried. I lost more than 8 kg, almost 18 pounds during that week. And I kind of am a skinny guy, even now in my 40s. So, after a week of seeing her sleep during the night without any remorse and with tranquility, I told her I was still set to win her back, but could not do that if she allowed someone else in her heart. And that is when she came clean. It was a coworker older than her, she said, who has kids of his own. It was an emotional affair for 2 months, and it became physical. That made her decide to leave our family. During that night, I stayed awake and made a profile of what kind of guy he could be. I used all my knowledge gathered during my 14 years in uniform. In the morning, I gave it to her, and after reading it, she laughed it off. I know now that I should have used the fog she was in to throw her out of our house. She even offered to leave, and during an argument later on, she redacted that she would have taken our daughter with her. But at that time, I decided to leave. It was best for my daughter to make the transition easier. On December 1st, 2023, I left for home. That morning, I took her phone while she was in the bathroom and unlocked it, because my daughter had shown me the night before the pattern to unlock it. I found her messages with this guy. I took some photos of them. I couldn't see straight, and I was shaking uncontrollably. Some of them came out blurred. They didn't just have an affair. They were kind of living together. When she said she was going to her office, even after one of my night shifts, she would go to him. Working remotely allowed her to do her work from home and cheat. I was surprised that she could be so attentive to this guy, showing him affection and not giving me the time of day. I mean, she could message this bastard early in the morning with kissing emojis, but couldn't give me 2 SHTS for an entire shift. Not even a message. I was in a very bad place. I was worryingly thin. I gave a scare to my mother-in-law, and she thought that I was ill. I couldn't bear to tell her what her daughter did. But I left. I retreated to my parents. It was the worst Christmas and New Year's Eve. It was the beginning of a SHT show. I visited my daughter each day or each other day in my own apartment, while I was still paying the mortgage. During that time, my daughter told me about mommy's coworker who visited them in the park and played with her. And I was on fire. Literally, it was like I was breathing venom with each breath. So I did a simple background check on this guy, as much as I was permitted without breaking the law. 8 years older than her. He was married twice. And during his second marriage, he had a child. A daughter the same age as mine, 2015, but with a third woman. 3 years after he divorced, he fathered another 2 boys with this third woman, but without marrying her. He left her when his youngest was 1 year old. His Facebook page is empty, just a picture of a snail, a sunset, and a message. During that period, I guess he left his family. I did not know how to search for him on different other online sites, apps, and stuff like that. But I found his LinkedIn profile. So we decided to divorce. I don't think there was ever a chance of reconciliation. During my visits, we argued. Lots of gaslighting. It appears it is all my fault. I am not what she thought I would be. I don't know her. I don't know who she is. She is married to a young man and has an experienced life as she has. It was not fair that she only knew one man during her life. I always projected her as a person she is not. She wants her freedom and independence, etc. She said that she is the number one person in her life. She is entitled to live her life as she pleases. Her affair was a mistake, even if she still continues it. But it opened her eyes to the fact that she was unhappy in our marriage. That kids grow up and move into their respective lives. I know she was unhappy. Maybe I was too. She stopped investing her time and feelings in me a long time ago. A lot of history is changing, but maybe with some truths behind it. I asked her why she did not fight for our marriage if she felt she was drifting apart. Why did she not try to communicate with me about what she was feeling? She feels neglected. She feels alone and unloved. She said she tried, but did not know how to put it in words. I understand the need to change at a certain point in life, to reinvent yourself. But that change must come from inside yourself, not changing all the things around you, but staying the same. I asked her why she chose to make me go through such a painful, life-altering, and torturous experience if she wanted freedom and was fed up with our family and chose to have an affair that involved divorcing. She replied that it just happened. Just happened. These things do not just happen. You let them happen. From the moment you decided to go out for coffee with that divorced, friendly, and experienced coworker and chose not to tell your husband, that was when you started to cheat. You accept the consequences of what might happen. And that is why you don't tell your spouse. Because you know that deep down, it is forbidden. But what is forbidden is so appealing sometimes, right? I also understand that. In my line of work, there were female colleagues, younger and more attractive, who wanted my attention. Maybe I wanted something more. I don't know. I always dismissed the possibility of anything else. Every day, I choose my wife because of her, not her looks. I chose her for what we had, for what we built together, for our child, and for the friendship we had over the years. I had so much love for her. But she always rejected me until I began to close within. Even if I was tired, when she wanted to go for a walk, I would load up our car with their bikes, do tire pressure, oil the wheels, and carry the water. It appears that it was a problem for her. I didn't enjoy these escapes, and she considered me to be a nuisance. Even if I was dead tired, I would cherish all the moments we had together. I just had to suck it up and go past my state. I am tired of all this writing, and it has stirred my feelings. On February 9th of this year, we divorced. Amicably. In my country, even if the reason for the divorce is adultery, the law gives primary custody to the mother. After the age of 10 years old, the child can choose to stay with the other parent. We have common custody, with her being the resident parent and me being the visitor. We can set any visiting schedule we want, but if we don't reach common ground, then we revert to the one imposed by law, meaning I get a weekend once every 2 weeks. My heart is shattered in a million pieces, and I miss my daughter so much. I miss my wife so much too, but the person she is now, I do not know. She changed 180 degrees. She is like a stranger to me. It breaks my soul to leave my daughter with such a person who has shown such low morality. I have weak values as a spouse and as a human being. During our divorce, I gave her the possibility of telling the truth to her parents. Trickle truth. Not the entire truth. So I visited them. I told them. I had to visit them more times to show them the truth. They still thought it was my fault. Until they confronted her, and she admitted it. But they never had enough sway to make her do something against her nature or will. My now ex-father-in-law told me that he feels like his brother died all over again. It breaks my heart even more to see their sorrow, because I really love them. But still, she is their daughter, and they will side with her. After the divorce in February, it took another 2 months for her to find a small apartment to rent. During this time, and until my daughter turns 18, I must pay alimony. After she moved, I worked during my spare time to put the old apartment in selling shape. Me and my almost 70-year-old father. She said she would help, but could not do so during the week because of work. But it appeared that she could abandon her daughter to her parents overnight, so that she could go on dates with her affair partner. One of the blows she gave me even now is that she spent the weekend at her affair partner with our daughter. How could you be so cold-hearted to do such a thing to your daughter? Of course he brings over his place, his 3 kids, for which he also pays alimony, especially his daughter. His children live with their mother, and not with him. I don't know how that goes because they all have their residency at his address. He brings his daughter over to his place, so that my daughter has someone to play and sleep with while he sleeps with her mother, my ex-wife. My daughter always slept with her mother. Not a day in her life has my ex-wife ever slept in a different bed than my daughter's. How can she explain that to her daughter? This thing angers me beyond words. And the constant reminder of their messages. I tried to avoid meeting him. I am afraid that if he tries to mock me, I will snap, and I will snap him in two. I am not ready. He isn't taller than me. He has a little weight, and he started to get bald. He isn't richer than me. What the women saw in him, I will not know. She didn't have the decency to tell me the entire truth. This was not an affair in its infancy. She had been working at that company for 8 months by then. Their affair must have had at least 6 months. She tried once to say she would like to remain friends and to co-parent. How the hell can you co-parent with an aggressor? A person who betrayed you and deformed you to the core. How can you communicate with such an awful person who has such low moral values? If it were after me, I would forget her face, her name, and that she ever existed and plagued my life. But I cannot. I must keep in touch with her for our daughter. This will not ever allow me to heal. I tried to talk about it with my daughter. But what can you say to a 9-year-old about something like this? I asked my ex-wife to talk to her often, and she says our daughter is fine. But I suspect it is just what our kids tell her mom, and she is satisfied with this answer without digging deeper. I can see that she suffers. I can see that she tries to bury these feelings in herself. And most of the time, when I try to pry open her heart, she tells me she does not want to talk about this, just to sit with me in silence. But now she is so clingy to my parents when she visits. She is so clingy to me. I communicate with her via WhatsApp every day and take her once every 2 weeks. I tried to take her often, but until I get my own place, it will take a few weeks or even months. What still disturbed me was the realization that whenever I take my daughter, I give my ex the opportunity to be with her affair partner. That was until I figured that it was better for my daughter to stay with me than be in that guy's house. Even this week, she spent a couple of days at her grandparents' side, while I guess my ex-wife worked hard during the night. Now, even 6 months after divorce, it still hurts like in the first days. I thought to go get some counseling, but I would lose my job. Going to a shrink or asking for help in my line of work is a defiant sentence. So I have to suck it up, man up, and get past this trauma on my own. I learned to stay clear of alcohol, even if I learned it the hard way. I go to the gym every other day. I gain my weight back and strive to gain a few more pounds, but it is hard for me. It appears I am a friggin' hard gainer. I tried to quit smoking and to travel more. I went after my divorce to visit one of my sisters in the UK. A couple of months later, I visited my other sister in Barcelona. Soon I will go for a week with just my daughter on the mountainside. And in November, to celebrate the discovery of my ex-wife's infidelity, I intend to go to Iceland. I really wish to buy a motorcycle because I always dreamed of having one. But being a married man with a child wasn't a financial priority. Also, raising that sum of money now with the constant payment of alimony is hard. So if anyone knows a way to make a little money, any advice is kindly appreciated. I don't know anymore, guys. I once asked my daughter how she would feel if I took a lady friend with us to the mountain resort. She was so panicked that her eyes started to tear. I told her we would go alone and that it would be just the two of us. She hugged me so hard that my eyes also started to tear. I do not think I am ready to date anyone. I felt inadequate. I know it's my self-esteem that plummeted. Second story. My ex-husband abandoned me for his new wife while I was pregnant and demanded a paternity test on our kids. He then called me a fraud after the results showed him to be the father. Now he is regretting everything and having a meltdown. He needs to pay child support, and I'm dating his former friend. My ex-husband and I have 3 children. It was a difficult split as he left while I was pregnant with our twins, and he tried to make everything as difficult as possible. He and his wife are wanting me to do a paternity test on the children, as they are disputing that our youngest is his, and he no longer wants to pay child support for her. His wanting to reduce his child support has been an ongoing issue. For the last 5 years, he hasn't had a problem regarding the paternity of any of our children. He's now stating that he doesn't think that our daughter is his, and that I have cheated because she doesn't look like him. She doesn't look much like me either. She's got green eyes like I do. Both of us are pale, with light-colored hair and eyes. Our daughter has dark hair that is thick and curly. She looks mixed race, and she's the only one who looks this way. Her twin brother looks like my ex-husband. My daughter looks like my grandmother, who was of mixed race and was white. I'll be honest and say that he and his wife do not get along. I mean, it is hard to get along with the woman your husband left you for. She keeps trying to shove herself into my children's lives and acting like their mom. She keeps insisting that she's mama, and they should refer to her as that. They have refused to call her that, which always ends it. My ex is calling me frustrated that the children won't show her respect. She's recently been pointing out that my youngest looks darker than her siblings, and has been suggesting that my youngest isn't my ex-husband's. I'm close with my former ex's brother's wife, and she told me before my ex did that he wanted a paternity test, and was going to stop paying child support for her. She's also said that his ex and his wife are once again having money issues. This was something I had already suspected, as he had stopped taking them on his weekends, as he was having to work overtime. Before people tell me to document this, I have everything documented. I refuse to answer calls from him, which forces him to either text or email me so that I can keep conversation records, as I don't trust him. After I found out about him wanting a paternity test, I told him that I wasn't going to consent to him doing a paternity test on the children, and the only way he was getting one was if he took me to court. He told me that it was clear our daughter wasn't his, and that she didn't look like her siblings. He argued that he couldn't afford court, and I was holding his money hostage by forcing him to pay for a child who wasn't his. He has now apparently been whining about me on Facebook about how I cheated on him, and am forcing him to raise another man's child, and forced him to sign the birth certificate. I didn't. He wasn't even there. But as we were still married, I could put him on without him being there. I don't follow him. I had one of his friends try and confront me about it. I want my children to have a relationship with their dad, and I feel like this is stopping them. On the other hand, I know there will be something else he or his wife takes issue with down the line. Ada for refusing to do a paternity test? Edit. I thought I'd put this in my post, but I didn't. I really should have proofread this rather than posting in anger. My ex wants me to pay for the paternity test. He doesn't want to because of his financial situation, which is why I told him to take it to court and get a court-mandated one. I know if I were to pay for it, he would want another one because he'd think that I tampered with it as I paid for it. He did the same when I had the house valued so I could give him half. He didn't like what the first person valued it at, so he had to get another. I know I haven't cheated on him, and she is his. I know some didn't like me referring to her as my youngest. Both she and her brother don't like being referred to as twins or as one, so I don't refer to them as such. Since they were toddlers, they have been very independent from each other and want to be treated as such. She is not my only daughter. My eldest is also a girl. Update. So I did not expect so many comments on my last post. After I posted about my frustration over the paternity test situation, my ex-husband, we'll call him Jim, and his wife kept trying to get me to consent to and pay for the paternity test. I refused to pay because I know Jim, and when the result isn't what he wants, he will accuse me of tampering with the results. When I kept saying no, they ran to whoever would listen, complaining about me and how I was forcing them to pay for a child that wasn't Jim's. For those who may not have read my last post, the child in question is my youngest daughter, a twin. Jim does not contest that her twin brother is his. But apparently, along with being a bee over this, I'm also a cat. I honestly didn't think he was that much of an idiot. But here we are. Jim kept complaining to his dad Mick and brother about me, and how I was being financially abusive by taking money from him for a child that wasn't his and refusing to pay for the paternity test. Now Mick and I get along very well. He adores his grandchildren. They also adore him, and I have never attempted to stop them from having a relationship, unlike Jim, who often attempts to weaponize the children. I get along very well with Jim's family, and we are close. His brother's wife, and I are very close. She's the sister I never had only child problems. Mick asked if he was to pay for a paternity test and if I would allow it to happen. Mick explained that he wasn't accusing me of anything, but he was fed up with seeing Jim and his wife drag me every chance they got. He understood why I was refusing and agreed with me. I agreed, but stated that Jim should choose the company that the paternity test is done through, and I didn't want to know which one was chosen. That way, I wasn't involved. So we had the paternity test. Mick paid for all 3 children to be tested and had them tested with a private company Jim chose, and then a private company Mick's lawyer recommended. Mick explained that he did this so that if Jim started arguing against the results, calling them fake, Mick had another set to back them up. And what do you know? All 3 children are Jim's. Since we've gotten the results, Jim has tried arguing that they're wrong and that the youngest definitely isn't his. He has also been taking to Facebook to complain about me and is threatening to take me to court for fraud. The man couldn't afford to pay for a paternity test. He definitely can't afford a lawyer to take me to court, but I'd like to see him try. Former Sil has been screenshotting some of his comments and sending them over to me, which we've been having a giggle over, especially since one of the things Jim has been whining about is finding out I've been dating a former friend of his. I say former because he, along with some others, were cut out by Jim's wife. Jim's upset because I am alienating him from the children by dating someone new. Coming from the man who left me when I was pregnant for his now wife, who keeps trying to insist she is mama to my children. My children only met my boyfriend for the first time this weekend, after we had been dating for a year. Before people jump to Jim's defense and claim I am alienating him, I've never stopped him from seeing or communicating with the children. He's the one who decides when he's interested in being their dad. So yeah, unsurprisingly, my children are Jim's. Jim's still an idiot. The children are happy as they're off to have a sleepover at their granddad's with cousins, while I get to have wine and spend the evening catching up with my former Sil. Jim and his wife are still mouthing off on social media, but it falls on deaf ears for the most part. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.